Call the Senate to order. Sergeant at Arms will please secure the doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, we are very pleased to have Pastor Romeo McCleary from Heaven of Rest Ministries in La Plata, Maryland, as our pastor of the day. He is also a member of the Capitol Police, who has been working at the Capitol. So sees the U.S. Capitol quite up close and personally, and this is his first visit and trip here to the Senate of Maryland. So I want to make sure that we give him the due regard from this incredible institution. So please rise for the invocation.
Let us pray. Most wise and eternal God, omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient Father, we come before you today as humbly as we know how to thank you for allowing us to have another day of worship, another day of reminiscence, and another day of service. We thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of the great state of Maryland in these United States, as we ask for your grace and mercy to cover us as we endeavor to manage and lead your people. Please forgive us for the mistakes we make in service unto you and your people. Lead and guide us to a path of justice, integrity, honesty, and righteousness. Help us find unity and not division in our decision-making process. Help us do what is best for our constituents collectively and not seek only personal gain. Father, bless each senator and state and staff member who is here and those who may be absent. In these challenging times, give them the desire to work through bias and partisanship to determine the best way forward for Maryland and its citizens. And we will give you praise, glory, and honor in your matchless name. Amen.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th District.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. So we just thank Pastor Romeo McCleary for being here this morning. Pastor Romeo McCleary is a faithful servant of God who has a heart for the souls of the people. He's called to shepherd the Haven of Rest Ministries Church of God in Christ in La Plata, Maryland, and he got there in 2018. Pastor McCleary strives to not only minister to the Word of God, but help those in the local community make a difference in their lives. I just want to add that he is a Baltimore City native and a U.S. Army veteran who has faithfully served ministries in Germany, Arizona, Texas, Hawaii, and of course, our home state of Maryland. Pastor McCleary has lived in La Plata and served in the community since 2002. He was the Chief of Staff of New Community Church of God in Christ in Waldo for 14 years. He works tireless in the community, volunteer with our major nonprofit, Lifestyles of Maryland. We do the homeless count, go in the woods every year and count those people who might be homeless and on the streets, provide homeless services. And he worked closely with Lifestyles of Maryland, and that mission provide food, clothing, and shelter to those in need. In addition, he works tirelessly in the town of La Plata in the opening of the Dorchester Community Center, which is provide 501c3 services to individuals who live in that community. I will say that Pastor Romeo is no Romeo. He's been married for 35 years to Emma McCleary with 4 children and 5 grandchildren. Many of them are here in the chamber with us. 2 daughters, if you could please stand.
Welcome.
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 Okay. and more relatives in the gallery, I think, behind me.
Oh, wonderful.
If
Welcome.
you see them, tell them hello for me.
Welcome.
Okay. And I would like to also add that Pastor McCleary is the uncle to my Chief of Staff, Autumn Grant.
Oh, very good.
So thank you so much, Mr. President, and I wish that his invocation be journalized.
Without objection, certainly we will journalize the pastor's wonderful remarks, and the senator from the 40th district will be pleased to know that he's also a polygrad too. So hey, all right. Has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? We got our chairs. Could we help out the? Thank you. All right. The clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Senators, we have a resolution from the senator from the 27th district. Chair will recognize the senator. Let's let the young men join us here.
Mr. President.
Oh, Senator, if we could have the senator from the 27th district do the resolution quickly, and then we'll recognize you right afterwards. I just want to make sure we get an. All right. All right. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th district.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise this morning to recognize a few distinguished constituents that we have with us this morning. It's an honor for me to welcome members of the 2021 State Class 3A Championship football team from Northern High School in Owings, Maryland, Calvert County. Back in December, colleagues, during their first visit to a state championship since their existence of 1973, the Northern High School Patriots defeated the District 4 Ligonier High School Lancers from Frederick County by a final score of 28-23 for the state championships. The team was led by the performance of senior quarterback Zach Krauntz, who threw for 368 yards and 4 touchdown passes in the game, and wide receiver and colleagues, Navy Academy commit Cody Howard, future Marine, by the way, hoorah, catching 2 of those 4 touchdowns. We're honored to have Zach and Cody with us, along with their teammates and their head coach, Rick Holzer. On behalf of the State Senate, gentlemen, we welcome you to the State Chamber, Maryland Senate. I have an opportunity to know your principal, and I know that you all are exemplary student athletes. So, Mr. President, if I could, let's welcome this group as well as their teammates. If you all would stand up in the gallery, the other Northern High School football players, 3A champions. It's an honor to host you all today, and I believe there's a resolution prepared at the desk. Mr. President, I'd like to have the resolution read in full. Thank you.
The resolution be read in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Northern High School football team in recognition of winning the 2021 Class 3A State Championship. We applaud your outstanding season and wish you many more. Congratulations. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 9th day of March, 2022.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. Gentlemen, the Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates your Class 3A state championship. Congratulations on an excellent victory, and hoping that the work that you do on the field is matched by what happens in the classroom. I'm sure it is. And also a quick note that our Sergeant-at-Arms is a Northern grad, and he told me when he was at Northern, it was a garbage football team. So clearly, he's going to have a hard time going back to that high school reunion. clearly, you all have turned the ship and become state champions, and so just want to say congratulations for everything that you're doing. We celebrate you. The chair recognizes the senator from Frederick City.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to comment that I was looking forward to my grandson being here, who played for the 12-0 Linganore High School team. I attended the game, and I have to say, these guys outplayed them. It was outstanding, and I think the coach was much more adjustable and did a fantastic job. So they well deserved the championship.
Excellent, excellent. Well done. Oh. All right, thank you all very much. Enjoy the victory and have a great day at school today. You all are going back, huh? Very good. Thanks, coaches. Appreciate y'all. All right. Any other introductions? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce the physician of the day today. He's a proud resident of District 11, Dr. Russell Wright. He is a retired otolaryngologist, or otherwise known as an ENT. He is also provides services to our military folks over at Fort Meade, and a retired colonel in the Army Corps, Medical Corps. So thank you very much.
Welcome to the Doctor of the Day. Again, District 11, home of the doctors. Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. Last week we had the PACE reception down there, a lot of people from Mountain, Maryland down here. And today we have some more people from Mountain, Maryland down here, and I think you're going to meet with them later today, Mr. President. Leadership Allegheny, I don't know if they're here yet. I think they're coming, so give them a warm welcome anyway. Thank you very much.
In absentia, we welcome them. Feel free to let us know if they arrive. Any other introductions? Chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really wanted to take a few moments to thank this pastor. I want to thank him for his unselfishness and the work that he does in Charles County. But more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, we really need to say thank you for the sacrifice that he has put forth as a member of the Capitol, the police officers who work on Capitol Hill. You all have just been wonderful, and you have sacrificed your life, left your families, and you have done an exemplary job. Please understand that we are watching, we are praying for you, and we just hope that someday soon we will not have the problems that we have, where you go out from your home in the morning and your family kiss you goodbye, not knowing whether or not you're going to return. But please know that we deeply and profoundly appreciate the work that you are doing with the officers on Capitol Hill, but more importantly, the work that you do in serving God. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for that reflection. All right. Any other introductions? If not, all right. So be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. Senators, we have some late filed nominations, heard from the Secretary's office today. So we're going to try and make sure that we can get these folks up in time. The clerk will read the message from the executive.
Dear President Ferguson, in accordance with Article 2, Chapter 13 of the Constitution of Maryland, I am pleased to submit appointment nominations for confirmation by the Maryland State Senate. These individuals bring exceptional knowledge and ability to the offices for which they have been nominated. I am confident they will provide the strength of experience and leadership to instill confidence among our citizens and ensure we succeed in our goals for Marylanders. I look forward to your favorable approval of these nominees. Sincerely, Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr., Governor. The letter is on the floor system.
Message having been read will be journalized. The nominees will be reported to the Committee on Executive Nominations. Senators, two important nominees in here. One is for the Court of Special Appeals. The other is for the UMS Board. News this morning that the chair of the UMS Board is stepping down and relocating, and so this is a replacement nominee for the UMS board. So want to make sure that we are able to get them up and have a chance to appear before the committee on Monday. Let's go ahead and start with second readers. Let's start with the report on education health. Oh, yes. Oh, Chair recognizes the senator from the 47th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise because I just received some late legislative bond initiatives that very important to my district, and I just would ask that they be assigned to the appropriate committee.
So the senator is moving to suspend the rules for the purposes of a late filed introduction. And Senator, if you could explain, if the senator could explain what the bills are.
Absolutely. So the bills include, there's been some issues inside of Mount Rainier with their welcome center that has been degrading, and they've come to me to try to upgrade the situation that's going on there. And so it's a critical situation right now, so they're asking for some help with that, and it's a similar something for the arts district as well.
And so these are legislative bond initiatives.
Yes,
is that
they
correct?
are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the senators requested to suspend the rules. This is generally something that we really try to avoid, but this is a bond initiative, so it is not policy. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Seeing no objection, the motion carries. The clerk will read the bond initiatives.
Senator Augustine, Mount Rainier Municipal Welcome Center.
All right, Majority Leader moves so we consider the reading of the bond initiatives for both of them. The bond initiatives will be referred to the subcommittee on capital. All right. Make sure we have all the paperwork. Are we good with that one? Okay. Let's go to Education, Health, Environmental Affairs, report number 21. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 159, Senator Kelly, Health Occupations, Authorized Prescribers, Reporting of Financial Gratuities or Incentives, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, this bill comes to us to put a brighter light on financial gratuities and incentives that are provided by the pharmaceutical distributors and manufacturers to prescribers in the state. We've actually bifurcated the bill through the amendments. As amended, it sets up the use of the federal database that already exists for physicians. The pharmaceuticals already have to report all their financial transfers to those physicians. And then it has the physician's board. If any physician receives over $5,000 in any one year, they are to review the prescribing patterns of those physicians within their specialty area. It does not say they have to take any action. It says they are mandated to review. We want to see if there is a nexus or a cause and effect. The review is internal only, and they can proceed with any action they would like. Other providers, other than physicians, all of those providers will have to make reports if they receive financial gratuities or incentives from pharmaceutical or equipment manufacturers, again, in excess of $5,000 to their respective boards. And if they do, then their boards will review their prescribing patterns of pills or equipment to see if it's in the reasonable range of that specialty area. That's what the bill does. Amendment 1 makes technical changes. Amendment 2 modifies the definition of financial gratuities and incentives. Requires the Board of Physicians also to post a link to the Federal Open Payments website, so an individual, when they go to the website, can see if their physician has received large payments from the pharmaceutical industry. It requires other health occupation boards that regulate authorized prescribers to require submission of the financial disclosure, which I mentioned a moment ago. As amended, all health occupation boards are required to review transactions in excess of $5,000. Mr. President, move adoption of the 2 committee amendments and favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. First, the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 159 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 354, Senator Elfreth, Bay Restoration Fund intended use plans and privately owned wastewater facilities. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This Senate Bill 354 simply requires some reporting to make sure that grants and from the revolving loan fund that was set up in 1988 comply with EPA standards, and that includes from our 67 public wastewater treatment centers. There are 2 amendments. The first is technical. The second one clarifies that the bill's restrictions or funding upgrades to private wastewater facilities apply to the entire Bay Restoration Fund and not just the Clean Water Commerce account. There was no opposition there, and the bill passed unanimously. Move the favorable report as amended.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 354 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 513, Senator Eckert, Health Occupations, Clinical Nurse Specialist, Prescribing Authority, favorable with 1 amendment.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all know, our state is in the middle of a provider problem, a provider crisis when it comes to health care. There is a critical need for expanded access, particularly in our rural and economically depressed areas. This bill is about patient access. Senate Bill 513 authorizes a clinical nurse specialist to practice as a clinical nurse specialist for the purposes of prescribing drugs and durable medical equipment, among other things. The bill designates the CNS as an authorized prescriber under the Maryland Pharmacy Act. I wasn't here then, but you remember, I'm sure many of you do remember, a little more than a decade ago, moving nurse practitioners being able to have this authority. We are now extending some of this authority to CNSs. There is 1 committee amendment. The amendment was actually recommended by MedChi, and its language to clarify the authority of CNS as it relates to diagnostic tests. For example, the bill is not intended to grant CNS the authority to interpret MRIs, which is the role of a radiologist. The authority granted in the bill related to interpreting a laboratory test is unchanged. So I move, the first amendment is technical, and the second, there's 1 committee amendment. So I move for the adoption of the favorable report and the committee amendments.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 513 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. All right, we got a small little bill next. Report number 22. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 528, Senator Pinsky, Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022, favorable with 10 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, the committee today brings to your consideration Senate Bill 528, the Climate Solutions Bill of 2022. A little different from the Climate Solutions Act of 2021, which passed this chamber but didn't do so on the other side. Let me set a little context before I go through the amendments, Mr. President, colleagues. The climate crisis has been called an existential threat. Now, it's not the existentialism in The Stranger of Jean-Paul Sartre, of the meaningless of life and the angst. It is about the threat to our existence. That's where we're talking about existentialism here. It's a threat to our existence, and I'm not going to spend time at 30,000 feet, but I do want to mention a couple of things. In the last couple of years, we've all seen the tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of acres that have been burnt in California because of the dry weather. We followed the heat dome in Seattle, Washington, the Washington area that cost many lives. We've seen the severe storms and flooding east of the Mississippi in our own mid-Atlantic region. But let's talk about Maryland for a moment. Our farmers are already losing on the Eastern Shore some of their acreage to saltwater intrusion. Crops won't grow because of the salt water entering their farms. I've seen pictures, I haven't been there recently, of Blackwater Refuge. And if you look at the trees that are bare of any growth, it's because of the salt water coming into there. It looks almost other planetary if you look at pictures, and I'm getting a nod from the center from the middle shore. You know, the newest studies say Rock Hall in the next 20 or 30 years is going to have some problems. They're on the coast, and as storms come up the Chesapeake Bay, they will be the ones that are affected by this. And if we move across the bay, here in Annapolis, we have what are called sunny day flooding days, where it's not because of sea level rise, it's mild or modest storms, and those numbers of days are increasing each year. And just think about this, if it's done in the spring and summer, all of the economic efforts of the boat people and the other people who come to Annapolis to visit, stores won't be able to open, and they probably won't be able to get in to some of the hotels that are near the water. These are very real problems. And if we go up 97 to Baltimore, we can look at Fells Point, we can look at the Inner Harbor, we can look at the port. We don't know the damage, the economic damage that'll be done to our state. Ellicott City, if we move a little further west, we've had 2 storms that were not 100-year storms, even 500-year storms. It decimated the city. And then we move west to Montgomery County, and even the smallest of rains and storms, I can't tell you, it leads the news a couple times a week of the streams that go over their banks and block streets, and cars are blocked, and occasionally lives are put in jeopardy. And ultimately, we don't know if River Road indeed becomes River Road in Montgomery County. But one thing we know for sure, it took 100 years for sea level to rise 1 foot. It is now projected the next foot of sea level rise will take 30 years. That means 2050, it's going to be another foot. So we need to understand another foot of sea level rise if Coastal Highway will be operable, if people will be able to get to the beach, get to the hotels. So this has economic implications for our state very significantly. The bill today, ladies and gentlemen, has elements of last year's bill, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those elements. We discussed it at length, but just very briefly, it does call for a 60% reduction of emissions by 2030 based on a 2006 benchmark, and a 2045 net neutral emissions by 2045. That was in last year's bill as well. Again, we call for the state fleet of light-duty vehicles as they reach their life cycle to be replaced by electric vehicles. Schools, we set up a special fund to have net neutral schools, at least 4 a year across the state. We visited 2 this summer, 1 in Baltimore, 1 in Howard County. It's being done, it can be done, and we have to build more of those. We call for a strong focus and a lens on environmental justice to understand the communities that are disproportionately affected and what kind of investments have to be made in those communities. It creates a just transition work group to understand the implication it has for our working families, our union brothers and sisters who might be affected by the change of a shift away from fossil fuels. It includes effect to look at methane, which is 50 to 80 times worse than carbon dioxide emissions. It also increased our energy efficiency from 2.0 to 2.75. Again, these were in last year's bill, and it exempts community solar from personal property tax if it's invested for low and moderate incomes. So they are the old elements. Let me talk about the new elements very, very briefly. And I'm going to do this at about 15,000 feet. I'm not going to get in the weeds today. I'll respond to your questions you have over the next couple of days. I also don't want to stay at 30,000 feet. The bill established a Maryland Climate Justice Corps, which will provide opportunities for young people to work on clean energy and climate mitigation projects in urban areas and communities disproportionately affected by climate change. We think it works well with the bill introduced by the Senate President that creates 3 other corps under an umbrella. The bill also establishes a Climate Catalytic Capital Fund, or C3 fund, administered by the Clean Energy Center, to function as a green bank, to leverage private money for investment in clean energy. They think they can probably get many, many dollars for every dollar that we put into this bank to serve as bridge loans, interest loans, et cetera, for other investors who want to put money into our state to invest in transfer into clean energy. It also does, and I'll come back to this, it implements recommendations from the Climate Commission, the Maryland Climate Commission, related to decarbonizing the building sector. Specifically, as amended, the bill requires the Department of the Environment to establish building energy performance codes, standards I should say, for commercial buildings and multifamily residential buildings of 25,000 square feet or larger. I want to reiterate, these standards are for large buildings 25,000 feet or larger. The standards must be designed to achieve a 30% reduction in direct emissions from covered buildings by 2035 and net zero by 2040, with accelerated requirements for the state-owned buildings. Agricultural buildings, public and private K-12 school buildings, and historic buildings are exempt from the standards. Let me repeat that. Agricultural buildings, public and private schools, and historic buildings are exempt from these standards. They still have to be over 25,000 square feet. The bill also establishes a Building Energy Implementation Task Force to develop a plan for funding retrofits to covered buildings. Let me go over the 10 amendments, and then the bill will be laid over, and Mr. President, if you want to take some initial questions from people, we can do it today or we can do it tomorrow.
I think we'll later, because we have a couple bills I think are going to be in a similar posture, so tomorrow may be our bigger day of...
That's fine.
Okay.
There are 10 amendments, I believe. The first one is technical. Amendment 2 requires that at least 40% of funding of this new clean energy bank be used for projects in low or moderate income communities, and establishes a mandatory appropriation of $500,000 in fiscal years 2024 and 2028 for the Healthy Soils program. Amendment 3 strengthens language relating to the responsibility of the Department of the Environment and the Commission on Environmental Justice, including requiring the department to incorporate environmental and climate justice consideration in all recommendations, policies, and programs and funding priorities. Amendment 4 makes changes to the Climate Justice Corps, including that the Department of the Environment oversee this new core program, which we're hoping will employ for a year 30 to 40 young people to work in their communities. Amendment 5 alters provisions of the bill related to landfill methane emissions, including authorizing the department to exempt landfills from certain emission requirements. Originally it said you had to meet California standards. That was removed in the bill. Amendment 6 alters the membership of the Just Transition Employment Work Group. We've added a couple people to that work group. Amendment 7 makes changes to provision regarding the purchase and use of zero-emission school buses, including delaying requirements until fiscal year 2025. The bill does say that new school buses, as they reach their life cycle, will be replaced with electric vehicles in both school systems that have their own bus fleets and those systems that contract. That will be based on the federal infrastructure bill, using federal money to do that as that becomes available. Amendment 8 adds language requiring the Department of Housing and Community Development to develop and implement a program to provide grants for energy conservation projects in low and moderate areas. Amendment 9 broadly authorizes counties and municipal corporations to exempt machinery or equipment that is part of a solar energy generating system. And we're going to talk more about that. There's an amendment coming from B&T, which relates to the bill that was special ordered yesterday. And finally, Amendment 10, which has been at the middle of a lot of debate and controversy. It makes changes to the bill dealing with the decarbonization of the building sector. One of the issues that came into the bill and was discussed in a lot of heat, sometimes light but rarely, was about new construction. The amendment strikes language. It strikes language that would have required the state to adopt an all-electric building code. Instead, it requires the Public Service Commission to do a study on certain issues to make very clear whether we have the capacity or not to move forward. and it's related to the goal of moving forward towards broader building electrification, which most scientists say and people in this field say we have to do. Secondly, the amendment makes various changes to the building retrofit provisions. Among other changes, it eliminates a 2030 interim goal. Originally, the bill said by 2030 they had to reduce emissions from those buildings over 25,000 square feet. We took that out to give them more time. We did retain the 2035 goal. The standards do not require each building to achieve a 30% reduction. That's very important. But instead require buildings to achieve a levels of efficiency designed to achieve an overall reduction of 30% from all covered buildings. MDE must adopt implementing regulations that account for various factors, including building age, regional differences, unique needs of particular buildings, and occupancy types like hospitals, et cetera. Amendment number 10 also adds language requiring the Department of Natural Resources to conduct a study of state properties that are suitable for use as organics recycling facilities. Mr. President, that is maybe not 15,000-foot view, but they are the 10 amendments. Significant portion of the bill, as I said, we discussed last year. We have added some components, and as I mentioned, we did reduce one that was one of major controversy, which I'm sure we'll talk about tomorrow. With that, Mr. President, I would move the 10 committee amendments and favorable committee report.
Floor leaders move for the 10 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Senator, well, let's just see, are there any, if senators are drawing up amendments, do we want to take maybe 5 minutes and see if there are any questions? For the purposes of amendment, we don't want to wait, we're going to have a lot of debate on this, but for the purposes of amendment, just if there are any clarifying questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th district.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yes, for the floor leader could continue to yield for questions.
Sure. Senator may proceed.
Yes, specific to the amendments and for the possibility of drawing up amendments. Amendment number 9 dealt with preemption language that I guess the counties could move forward to a all-electric building requirement, or in a sense ban natural gas. Do we know if that is something that, one, either they can currently already do, or two, would this in a sense usurp the authority of the Public Service Commission, which has responsibility for our entire energy grid?
There's no changes in that. I mean,
there's no change. There's an amendment in here. So go.
I meant it doesn't change the status of what locals can do.
This amendment does not?
Correct.
Then may I
counties
ask
have
why?
authority now. And in
Why-
fact, Montgomery County is working on a code that actually they're about to implement, and they have flexibility to exceed the codes. I think the current law says a county may, if they choose, exceed the code.
So then why is the amendment necessary in this bill?
It clarifies that authority, and it also deals with exempting machinery and equipment. In other words, there are some counties that would like to have incentive for more solar, for example, and if they want to exempt personal property tax, it allows them to do it if they choose.
Okay, that might not be the way that I'm hearing that this
Okay.
amendment is read. So again, that's why I wanted to ask that question. I have heard that many people are seeing it as the potential for a county to enact, for instance, a gas ban, which the amendments specifically took that out of the broader bill. But the concern is that this amendment number 9 would in fact allow a county to implement a gas bill, which again usurps the power of the Public Service Commission that has overall responsibility of the electric grid and those concerns.
It's my understanding that, putting this bill aside, counties could exceed building standards and develop one. But I think we're confusing two amendments. I think this is really about personal property tax on number 9. I think that issue does come up, Senator, but I think we can talk offline.
I might have got the wrong number when you
where
went
that comes up.
All right. Either way, I'm concerned about the preemption of the local
Right.
jurisdictions being able to to potentially put in their own gas ban. If you're saying that they're allowed to do it, then I have to evaluate that, but that's concerning.
Senator, this bill hasn't passed yet. Some counties have already moved to set their own building performance standards that exceed the state ones, and they're allowed to do that now.
I think throughout the bill, you've changed it from building efficiencies, building performance standards,
correct.
all of that.
Yes.
And that being one thing, I'm concerned about, again, the original bill specifically spoke about a ban on gas throughout the bill.
No, it didn't. First of all, that section of the bill is taken out.
Correct.
Number one.
Right.
It didn't ban gas, okay? It said it had to move to all electric, you know?
Oh, sorry.
I know,
Sounds pretty much the same, but
okay,
I understand.
But again, that portion of the bill is not here.
Right.
Obviously, the utilities who cried poverty and the sky was falling had some success, and their profits are retained. So that's,
I don't think that was the only
deal.
concern of the utilities, that all of a sudden they would not be serving natural gas. But obviously, it's very important to many buildings and institutions that use natural gas also as a means of heating, as a means of
But again, that's not on the table.
All right. And again, I think it was Amendment 10 that you had, and again, I'm sorry because I went through pretty quick because you were right. Amendment 10 is a little bit more what we talked about, strikes the all-electric building code for new construction.
Correct.
Right? Can you explain again what remains for existing buildings?
It says that if you are a building over 25,000 square feet, and you're not an agricultural building, you're not a school, you're not a historic building, then the Department of the Environment will take sectors of types of buildings, and by 2025, figure out what the average emissions is, and then they will say to that sector, in that sector, you will have to do reduce 30% by 2035. It's up to how you do it. If you want to do solar, you want to redo your windows. When you're renovating, you want to remove your furnace and put a heat pump. However you want to do it, you can do it. And the reduction will be different based on the type of building. High-rise office buildings will get one number, supermarkets will get another number, and they will have 10 or 12 years to make those changes to reduce by 30%.
And this was existing buildings, right?
Any existing building over 25,000 square feet.
Okay, all right. I think you said
not residential homes unless you've got a home over 25,000 square feet.
No. Surely don't. Okay, just again, so the report comes out from the Department of Environment. That's who's providing this, or Department of Environment manages this.
Department of Environment manages it, yes.
They'll put out the report next year.
First they have to gather the data of a baseline, essentially. Mm-hmm. So they want to find out how much energy buildings are using. And we don't have all that data, so we actually give them to 2025. I mean, this is a couple years out there, so we use 2025 as a baseline. They will start to collect the data across all these large buildings, and then they will divide sector by sector what the normal/average emissions, I don't have the exact term, I don't want to use that term right now, I don't know what it is. And then they will place a marker saying, you know, if you are a high-rise building or a large multifamily building or a supermarket or a warehouse, you will have to reduce 30% from this number. Now, if in the last 5 years you've already renovated and you've done some of these practices, you very likely won't have to reduce 30%. You might have to do 5% or maybe nothing at all. So we want to respect those people that have been looking forward, those large building owners who've started to make these changes. But some that haven't are going to have to make some changes as they move forward, and we give them at least 10 years to do that.
Okay, let me make sure I understood a couple things. The I thought you said a 2023 date, but it's a 2025 date when this baseline information will come out?
I believe that's right. Yes,
2025 date, and then they have from there 12 years.
10 years, 2035 for the first level of reductions, if they have to make them.
And so basically, you're classifying the buildings within different user groups or different types of buildings.
Yes.
They will have to meet a broader goal, whatever that reduction is. It's not a reduction of every individual building.
By 30, that's correct. Exactly
That
right.
if you've already gone and done some of these things, and this is all the existing buildings, just existing.
That are over 25,000 feet and are not exempted.
Okay. All right. I think, again, thank you very much. Mr. President, I know we've got a number of other questions. I just wanted to make sure I understood those two amendments that were brought up, but whatever the wishes is from here. Thank you.
We have a question from the senator from the 34th District on amendments. We'll just do this one and then we'll lay it over after that, because I think they're going to be
Thank you, Mr. President.
extended debate. Yes.
Chairman,
It's louder
thank you.
today. It does seem louder, doesn't it?
Loud today. On the school bus provision of this, I just got some inquiries out of my own county on this one, and the foundation of their concerns is that the electric school bus is far more expensive, and B, they haven't been able to find a reliable addition that approaches where we currently are. Are there funds in here to avoid an unfunded mandate down to the county levels for the school buses? What can we do? If you can expand on that one, please.
No, thank you, Senator. And I mentioned earlier, this is conditioned on a couple of things: the availability of the buses and the funding from the federal government.
Okay.
So, and that federal support will be used in both cases in some of the smaller counties that contract. So this does not put a burden on any local at all. So essentially I don't remember I don't know if it's $500 million or $1 billion in the infrastructure bill that passed last year with bipartisan support.
But it is conditional.
Yes,
That
yes.
requirement is conditioned upon.
And also the availability.
I understand. It's conditioned upon those
Yes.
existing. Okay. Thank you very much, Senator.
All right. Let's go ahead and we'll pause it there. The chair moves to
lay over the bill and the amendments.
Chair has moved to lay over the bill and the amendments under the rule. Senators, as senators are drawing up amendments, would please ask, this is a complicated, I was obviously being facetious earlier about a small little bill. This is a big, important bill, and so there are a lot of moving pieces in it. If senators have amendments, please make sure to get them to the committee so that they can review them and check the impact. Chair recognizes the senator from 36th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just process. The thought is to bring the bill up tomorrow.
Tomorrow, we'll have extended debate on it, so hopefully if folks can make those requests sooner. And look, we've got a little bit of time, but not a lot of time. So
I just want to make sure that everybody is on board if we're requesting amendments that we can try to get.
Certainly, and we'll
DLS does a great job. I just want to make sure they're aware of it.
Of course, yeah, and we'll make sure the amendments office knows to prioritize to make sure we have these ready. All right, that does it for that calendar. We have another small little bill, a piffle maybe. Report number 11 from Budget and Tax. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 541, Senator Elfreth, Natural Resources, Maryland Park Service and State Parks, alterations, Great Maryland Outdoors Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsors, the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, over the course of the pandemic, our constituents rediscovered parks to the extent about 45% increase in visitorship to our state parks across the state. Now that's a great thing. Parks are great for public health, they're great for our economy, but a challenge kind of grew in that we have for decades now underinvested in the infrastructure and staffing of our state parks. The Senate President over the interim, along with the Speaker of the House, put together a commission to view all the challenges and opportunities related to the state parks over the course of the fall. A number of us, both from both sides of the aisle, participated in that commission. We heard from dozens of stakeholders, and through that process, we drafted a report that is available online. Happy to share it with folks. And that report is now, the product of that report is now the Great Maryland Outdoors Act, Senate Bill 541. This is very much a circumstance where the need is going to meet opportunity. So the bill is quite comprehensive. I'm going to just run through the kind of highlights of the provisions. There are some amendments, Mr. President. I'll go through kind of the bill first and then the amendments. The bill creates two major funds. One is a $70 million critical maintenance fund to tackle a significant backlog of critical maintenance, again, across the state. Thankfully, the governor already started the investment in his fiscal year 23 budget. This fund is going to ensure that over the next few years we continue that investment and close out all those critical maintenance needs. The next is an $80 million capital improvements and acquisition fund. Now that fund is going to be broken down into a number of buckets. Part of what we discovered is that we have a lot of great state parks, but they tend to be on the edges of our state, and we certainly need more state parks and opportunities for people to enjoy those parks where in central Maryland where most of the population resides. So this fund will allow for land acquisition of new state parks, transportation improvements, both in parking availability, trail connectivity, and pilot transit plans, so to ensure that folks who might not have access to a car can still make it to a state park. There is a bucket for water access. One of people's favorite activities at state parks is to launch a boat or to kayak or simply picnic near water. So looking at how we can improve those water access opportunities. Next, we have historic preservation. Our state parks have a wealth of historic structures, and we want to make sure we're investing in the upkeep of those historic structures. And then the last bucket is for resilience infrastructure. So thinking about where can we plant more trees, where can we build more green and blue infrastructure to mitigate the impacts of sea level rise and climate change in our state parks. The bill also supports our dedicated park rangers and staff. It requires that DNR fill 100 additional positions over the next few years. It ensures that park rangers are identified as first responders, and it's going to call for consistent salary reviews. What we heard a lot is our very hardworking park rangers do not make near as much as their colleagues working for national parks or county parks. We want to make sure that we are compensating our state employees well and retaining them. We also took a really hard look at accountability to make sure that these investments are actually going to be spent the way this General Assembly plans for them to be spent, and also ensure that we have both a short-term kind of capital outlook, but a long-term strategic plan for our park system. And then this oversight that we're creating is a Park and Rec Commission so that we can ensure public input into the future of our state park system. Mr. President, that's the bill as drafted, and there's one committee amendment that does a number of things that I'm happy to walk through, if appropriate. Okay. The committee, both Budget and Tax and Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, reviewed the bill and drew up a number of amendments. The first would make the Park Service Associates will now be known as Park Rangers. It's just a small terminology change that they requested. Next, it requires DNR's electronic asset management system to be strengthened by requiring the system to include when a project is added, requiring the evaluation team to assess the conditions of structures, infrastructure, and landscapes. The next authorizes DNR to use money in the Capital Improvement Fund designated for the historic preservation of those park structures in coordination with non-governmental organizations. The next adds, by request of the department, a Great Maryland Outdoors Fund to allow for greater investments in outdoor recreation. The amendments make small changes to the scope of certain reports and plans that DNR needs to submit to this General Assembly and the public. The next adds intent language that state parks can be created in certain areas of the state. After that, we looked at a model that National Park Service had called partnership parks, which is a really interesting way that under this amendment, DNR could partner with municipalities or counties or nonprofit to create these partnership parks. So the amendment allows for that. The next amendment allows for MALF, which is an agricultural program. The bill tinkers a little bit with a funding formula, so allows for a portion of that to be used for urban agriculture. The next contains numerous workers' compensation presumptions. The bill is drafted, mistakenly pulled in all of the presumptions for police and fire into the park rangers. That was not our intention. So we stripped all of those out with leaving Lyme disease, which I think we can all agree is a reasonable presumption for our park rangers. And next, the amendments extend a mandated appropriation to the State Lakes Protection and Restoration Program for an additional 3 years to ensure that we are investing appropriately in the maintenance of our state lakes. Mr. President, those are the budget and tax amendments and the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs amendments. I move the adoption of the two amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none. Senate Bill 541.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, there is one amendment,
Oh.
I believe. In the
Yes. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment, 353.
Oh, Senator, we'll collect it. Just give us one moment here. We will get it up on the floor system. See, the senator from District 7 brought his computer today, so has those electronic amendments available. Fair enough. No, I like the paper too. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you. The amendment does a number of things. This is a general area that I'm very interested in. And the amendments, the first set of amendments, strikes some, it was necessary to strike some amendments that were offered in the budget attached committee amendments. So those are the first two amendments. So they're technical. The next amendments address adding feature to the inventory that's being conducted, features that allow the department to manage the planning, scheduling, work order, and cost of each project. There's also the next amendment, number 4, adds some additional reporting to do some cross-sectional analysis with environmental justice areas in the state. The next set of amendments are more about the survey that the Park Service will be conducting, making sure, again, that it incorporates and use the Maryland Environmental Justice Screen Tool. Then it also makes sure that we create a layer so that we're able to evaluate projects using this tool, and that there's a focus on both racial and linguistic inclusivity. Now, throughout these set of amendments, some of what we're doing is changing vague language that says sort of minorities or disadvantaged groups, and using the terminology that is used by EPA or departments in the environment in the state of Maryland, as well as nationally. So that's what a number of, so if you're looking to see, this says something like, the next set of amendments says addressing environmental justice concerns. When it talks about the history of African American, Asian, Indigenous, or Native Americans, previously it just said minorities. It also, another set of amendments adds members to the Park Commission. We do have an Environmental Justice and Sustainability Commission, so we thought it would be important that some of those members are there. We're also adding to the project, to the mission of the Park Service, that our parks can be used to address climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resiliency, and also public health. Additionally, an amendment was offered and that to make sure that the safety in our parks address both disability community as well as making sure that our parks are accessible to older adults. Additionally, we want to make sure that our parks are safe. So we know that there are environmental design principles that can be used to reduce crime. There's specifically a crime prevention design strategy, and we want to implement those in our parks. Additionally, when we're telling the stories of Marylanders, we want to make sure that we are focusing on those historic communities that are in Maryland, more about surveys, making sure that we're incorporating environmental justice principles in our surveys and our projects. And then finally, hold on, thank you. We're adding members to the Park Commission that are also representative of the Governor's Commissions on African American History and Culture. We have a commission on Asian Pacific Islanders, and adding a number of existing commissions there. And then finally, we're adding some intent language around if the state acquires Hill Park Road in Prince George's County, that we're going to establish it and maintain it in a manner substantially similar to other parks. I'm sorry, I missed one more amendment on page 5, where we made some changes in the bill that reference historically black colleges and universities, and in the original draft language, there were some references to foster care and cadet programs, and we found some language that was more consistent with what the state should be attempting to accomplish, which is to simply follow the diversity strategy under the Park Services Direct Order 16B. So I know this is a friendly amendment because I've worked with the committee on this amendment, so I ask the body to adopt this amendment.
All right, the senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the sponsor of the amendment for her input and working with me over the weekend, and the committee accepts this as a friendly amendment.
All right, Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you. Just as a process, I mean, we were secondary on this, and I heard we might have a small amendment on the floor. I think this should have been done in committee, quite honestly. It's 5 pages long, and I heard all kind of different things from crime reduction to all that. So I would like to lay it over and look at the amendment more closely.
Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lay over under the rule. All right. We're going to have a big day tomorrow, so we're going to end a little bit earlier today. We may not get through everything. We're going to have a long floor day tomorrow, so just let's plan out on our calendars. We've got a layover bill. We'll do a few more here. We've got some kind of last ones to get around. Let's do layover calendar number 15. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 59, Senator McCray, Maryland Transportation Authority, options for the payment of tolls and civil penalties. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, Senators, questions on the amendments? Any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from 36th District on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a number of questions that I discussed already with the bill sponsor and the executive director of MDTA, and those issues have been addressed.
Excellent. All right, on the amendments, is there any discussion on the amendments? Chair recognizes the floor leader on the committee amendments.
No, I got another amendment.
Okay, that's on the amendments. Are any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amended committee report is adopted. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City has an amendment. If we could collect the amendment. Give us just a moment, Senator.
Mr. President, this is a very simple amendment too. On page 11, one of the dates for the report was actually wrong, so it just changes it from 2023 to 2022. Right. Very simple.
Just give us 1/2 second, just make sure it's up so that folks can take a look. We don't want to rush it too much. Make sure that we don't miss something. All right, technical. Senator has moved the amendment. Any discussion on the any objections to the senator's amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 59 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. We've got a special order. This is special order number 41. Oh, yes, Chair recognizes.
I had an amendment on, also on that last bill.
Oh, apologies. All right, let's, we will, if we could reconsider the vote, well, we can just bring it back up. Let's go ahead and strike the action of moving it to 3rd reader and bring it back up. It is on 2nd reader, open to amendment. Give us 1 second. All right, the senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is another friendly amendment. It just says that if P3s ever occur, that they should be required to bid out the work in an open and transparent procurement.
All right. Let's hear on from the floor. The senator moves the amendment. The floor leader on the amendment.
Mr. President, the committee accepts the amendment.
All right. The committee sees it as a friendly amendment. Are there any objections to the senator's amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 59 is now ordered printed for 3rd reader. All right, we have special order calendar number 41. I think if we're ready, the clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 461, Senator Griffith, State Finance and Procurement, Procedures and Pricing and Selection Committee for Preferred Providers, Question is on the adoption of the favorable report.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 461 really just makes technical, procedural, and conforming changes to state procurement law. This bill is basically a cleanup bill that came as a result of the procurement reform about 5 years ago in the state. It was brought to my attention the need for this bill as the Senate representative on the Procurement Improvement Council. The bill authorizes the Department of General Services to work with DBM in the approval of the Board of Public Works to establish fees for training, strategic sourcing, and administrative costs related to the use of the eMaryland Marketplace. And it also transfers authority for reviewing the pricing of commodities sold by the Maryland Correctional Enterprises from DGS to a new pricing and selection committee. There are no amendments, and I would move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right. Floor leader has moved for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 461 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, Senators, we're going to call it there because we're going to have a long day tomorrow, so we'll just leave some of this stuff for tomorrow to close down. We're going to have probably debate on a couple important bills. So let's go ahead and hear from the Chair of Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman and members, Finance will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings. We have 7 of them, and then we will be voting.
All right. Hearings and voting. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. EHE will be meeting at 1 o'clock for bill hearings, followed by a very long voting, or a long voting session. You should have received the voting list last night or yesterday afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. Budget and Tax will meet at 2 o'clock for bill hearings, and then we will have a short voting session.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings, followed by a voting session.
Excellent. All right. Chair recognizes the Chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please be advised that the Senate Rules Committee will be meeting today, right after session, in the red room.
In the red room. So, Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Tax.
And tomorrow morning at 8:30, we have pensions.
8:30 tomorrow, pensions. Chair, are there any, let's do committee any other standing committee announcements, delegations, select committees? Going once, going twice. All right, Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a history in my office of bringing in talented Towson Tigers, and Evelina Serapi was my intern in 2020 and 21, and she is here for the first time in person on the Senate floor. She's graduating this May with a degree in poli-sci and a minor in Spanish, and she's just done wonderful work. It's great to have her with me in person today.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Chair recognizes the Senator from the 33rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the great things about the Senate are our panoramic pictures. They're in the lobby over here, and it has kind of a short deadline. It says March 14th. So I just want to point out the pictures are in the back, the order form, March 14th. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for that reminder. I was supposed to bring that up too. Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County, followed by the Senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick delegation business. Montgomery County colleagues, I know that our delegation photo was scheduled for today. It was canceled. It was rescheduled for tomorrow. That too has been canceled. So please take that off your calendars. But also a quick reminder that immediately following session tomorrow in the Silver Room, we're voting one bill. One bill, it'll take 5 minutes. Certainly, I don't think there'll be any controversy. So tomorrow, immediately following session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, if I could take a moment of personal privilege. Last evening, I found out that I lost an uncle. He is the last paternal uncle of the 10 uncles I had, a pretty large family. The only member of that level that's left is my stepdad right now. So out of the 12 gentleman. So if we could adjourn in the name of William Gordon as we adjourn. So thank you.
William Gordon, Senator?
Yes.
Is that his name?
Yes.
Well, look, our heart goes out to you and your entire family. We're so sorry. It's just the stories of life these days, but we're here for you. And we have the name, Madam Majority Leader. Yeah, Mr. William Gordon. All right. Are there any further announcements before we adjourn? If not, let's do a quorum call before adjournment.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 40 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Thursday, March 10th at 10 a.m. in memory of
William
Gordon.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, without objection, so ordered. Stay safe, everyone. Have a wonderful day.